Welcome to our lab on muscles that move the superior appendages. So, superior appendages, we're talking about the upper limbs, right? We're talking about the arms, but we're going to get a little more complicated than that. The first thing we're going to talk about moving is moving the scapula. All right, you know where the scapula sits, resting against that rib cage, articulated with the clavicle right there. And the scapula can move. It'll glide along the ribs, basically in the four classic directions. It'll go up, down, it'll go in, it'll go out. Okay? So let's talk about that. Number one, we can elevate the scapula. So think about shrugging your shoulders, like saying, I don't know, shrugging your shoulders, bring your shoulders up, doing a shoulder shrug. That is elevating your scapula. Okay? Number two is depressing your scapula. Think about just being in a normal position, like sit normally, and then drop your shoulders. All right, you should feel your scapulae go down. Okay, because normally they're a little bit, your natural position is not at the lowermost point of the scapulae. So you can drop them down a little bit. That's number two. Number three is abduction. So bringing the scapulae in. It's also called retraction because you're bringing them back too. Think about pulling your shoulders back, like trying to squeeze your upper back together. Okay? Like you're puffing out your chest and you're squeezing your shoulder blades together. That's abduction or retraction. Lastly, think about pushing your shoulders forward. That's also going to pull your scapulae apart from one another. So that's adduction or protraction. So these are our four basic movements. Okay, four basic scapulae movements. And now what we're going to do is talk about the muscles that are going to achieve this. So we're going to start with a pair of muscles, all right? Number one is the pectoralis minor. It's this little guy right here, okay? He is originating generally on ribs 3 through 5. It can also go on rib 2 as well, but generally ribs 3 through 5. And it's going up. We don't see the insertion, but the insertion is up on the coracoid of the scapula. Okay? But we see the pectoralis minor here. It is going to pull the scapula forward, so it's going to protract or adduct the scapula. Think about, like, let's say you're texting on your phone. You get your phone in two hands. Okay, you've got one hand holding it, the other hand is doing the texting. And get in this position, and you'll notice your shoulders are hunched forward. All right? That is scapular protraction. You actually don't want to be in this position all the time. You don't always have your shoulders forward. You want to have them in that good neutral position. So, pec minor, pectoralis minor, protracts the scapula, originates on the ribs, usually 3 through 5, inserts up here on the coracoid of the scapula. It's deep to the pec major. I only see the pec minor on the right-hand side of this guy because the pec major is still here on his left. It's been removed on his right. Okay, another muscle, we see a little hint of it right here. This guy right here, we'll look at it again in another model and on a human. This is the serratus anterior. It is also a protractor of the scapula. We see it anchored on the ribs here. It's going to go in and grab the scapula and also pull it forward. Think about doing like a punching motion. All right, so do a straight right. All right, straight, and just punch your right fist straight forward. You should feel that shoulder go forward, and your serratus anterior is going to do that. If we switch models, so on this model here is the pec major right here, and these little sharp points right here, this little trio right here, is the serratus anterior. That's the serratus anterior. The word serrated means like a saw, okay? So the saw-toothed aspect of this muscle. If we look at this guy right here, he's pretty muscular, he's pretty tan, we can see his serratus anterior right here as well. It is going to pull those shoulders forward. If you were to get yourself in a sort of classic, let's say you got yourself in a classic push-up position. There you are. Classic push-up position. Let's give you some hips and knees, give you some shoulders here. And now, from this locked elbow position, let's say you just raise your body up a little bit. All right, so like a little extension without the elbows changing at all. You're going to use your serratus anterior in order to pull your scapulae forward, and that's going to kind of lift your body up in this position. Okay? So if you were doing a regular push-up, you would go down to the ground, of course. So you go all the way down. There you are. And then when you go back up, I didn't draw that arm very well. That's a crappy arm. There we go. So you're doing a push-up. Your arm is bent. And then you push yourself up, but then you keep going at the top. So that little extra would be the serratus anterior, which we see so nicely on this dude right here. All right, and he's happy because he's helping you learn about anatomy. All right, good stuff, guys. So those are my two protractors of my scapulae. Because they're doing the same job, of course, what word do we use to describe them? They are, of course, synergists. Okay, cool, good stuff. Now let's talk about a muscle on the opposite side. Hey, by the way, did you notice that the muscle that pulled the scapulae forward was on the front? So there's a little idea here. The muscle is often where the motion is. Okay? So this is going to hold true more often than not. So we're pulling the scapulae forward, so the muscle needs to be in the front. Now we're going to talk about pulling the scapulae in some other directions. And I want to draw your attention to this back here. And there is this big sort of diamond-shaped muscle on the back. And this is the trapezius. The trapezius. It's a big muscle. It is definitely a big muscle. We see it on this guy over here as well. We can kind of like trace the outline of his trapezius too. There we go. Boom, 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 boom. There it is. So it actually has three jobs because it's so big. Its upper fibers, well, they're above the scapula, so they're going to elevate it. So think about shrugging your shoulders. The middle fibers, they're medial to the scapula, so they're going to pull the scapula inward, so they're going to adduct or retract it. The lower fibers, the ones below the scapula, of course, are therefore going to depress it. All right. If you are in the gym and you want to work your scapula, want to work your trapezius. If you are doing shoulder shrugs, so you're standing there, you're just chilling out right there. There you are. You are holding a dumbbell in each hand, perhaps, and you want to bring your shoulders up. So you shrug your shoulders. That's going to work your trapezius. Similarly, if you are in the gym, any motion, you're not doing this when you're standing, but any motion where you are going in this direction, so your arm is going that way. So like imagine like a rowing type motion. You are using your trapezius. All right. Good. Trapezius does a lot, right? And check out the fact that, look, check this out. The trapezius is going to elevate the scapula, taking it up. And it's going to depress the scapula, taking it down. Opposite movements. Holy moly. The trapezius is a self-antagonist. it is going to, depending on what fibers are working, it can cause two diametrically opposed movements. Okay, good stuff. Let's keep on going. If we look at the front of the model, we see the trapezius right there. We can see it on the lady as well. And we'll see it on other more muscular folks too. I wonder if we go back to that previous guy. We can get a hint of his trapezius right there. We'll see it on a lot of people as we go through these slides today. All right, cool. Done with movements of the scapula. Now we're going to talk about movements of the arm. Okay, so we're talking about movements of this joint right here. This is the joint between the humerus, the head of the humerus here, and the glenoid cavity or glenoid fossa of the scapula. So it is our glenohumeral joint. Of course, it's a ball and socket joint. So it is going to be triaxial. It is moving in all three planes. It's multiaxial. It's got multiple axes of movement. Check out this guy right here. He is taking his arm up this way. That is flexion. So if you go from arms down to arms straight forward ahead, like you're doing a zombie impersonation, you have just flexed your shoulder joint. You've flexed your arm. Going back, so go from that arms forward. So if you're standing here, this is you. There you are. Arms forward, you are flexed at the shoulder. If you go back to normal, or you even go beyond normal, so even go a little bit farther back, doing that motion is extension. So going from arm forward to the arm back. So do these motions as you're learning this. Try and feel the muscles that you've got to try and help cement these things in your memory. So flexion is to the front. Can you guess where the flexor muscles are going to be? You got it. They're going to be in the front of this joint. Extensor muscles are going to be in the back. But there are more movements, so let's hit those. If we look at this guy over here, he is showing us both abduction and adduction. So think about doing like a jumping jack sort of motion as your arms go from your sides out. So they're stretched out. You are doing abduction, and as you come back in towards your body, you're doing adduction. You can also think about rotating your humerus. So, think about being in anatomical position, palms forward, and then switch to palms backwards, switch to palms forward, rotating your whole arm as you do this. Okay, so we got lateral and medial rotation. We got AB and adduction. Let's now do some muscles. Starting on the model, we're going to start with this big shoulder muscle here. This is the deltoid. Often it resembles an upside down triangle. Greek alphabet, the letter that looks like this is called a delta. So this is why it is called the deltoid, shaped like a triangle, shaped like a delta. Starts on the clavicle, lateral clavicle plus the acromion and the spine of the scapula. That's the origin. Comes down, and we don't see the bony attachment here, but we know it's right there, is going to insert on the deltoid tuberosity of the humerus. And I want you to notice something here. I want to point something out to you. There are anterior, middle, there we go, and posterior fibers. So your deltoid actually has three separate parts. The anterior fibers are in the front, so they move your arm to the front, which of course is known as flexion. The middle fibers are on the outside of that joint, so they move the arm out, which is going to be abduction. The posterior fibers, obviously, are in the back, so they're going to move the arm backwards, which of course is extension. And notice we can see the deltoid in the anterior, and we can see the deltoid in the posterior. If you are in the gym, if you are doing any of these three movements, you are working your deltoid. So If you're at the gym, this is you, happy at the gym. There you are. You got some weirdly asymmetrical legs. You're standing there. You have a dumbbell in each hand. Bum, bum, there it is. If you go from that position to this position, whoa, what happened to your body there? It got all messed up. Your spine got all twisted. That's not good. You got a little taller. That's good too. But if you go from the position on the left to the position on the right, if you're doing a classic exercise called a lateral raise, you are using your middle fibers of your deltoid. If you brought the dumbbells forward, you would be using your anterior fibers of your deltoid. Pretty much any exercise that involves the movement at this shoulder joint is going to involve the deltoid. Okay, notice the only thing the deltoid did not do, the only thing the deltoid was not involved in is adduction. Okay, that's the only thing the deltoid doesn't do. Pretty much everything else it does. If you are in the gym and you are doing, what do you want to do? What exercise do you want to do? So there you are. Let's say you're in the gym. Let's give you some legs and some feet as always. And there's your arm. So you are holding a barbell right now. You're holding a barbell. Let's throw some bumper plates on that. So there's you holding the barbell right there, okay? And if you were going to do a classic overhead press, a military press, bringing the weight up in this direction, that of course is going to involve your deltoid. Think about the continual abduction that you're doing as you raise your arm upward. Okay. Let's keep on going. This is good stuff. Let's clear that. Get rid of our draw button. We switched models here. This is an arm model. And here's the back of the upper arm here. The elbow's down here. This is the back of the deltoid right there. Here's the side of the upper arm. Lateral deltoid right there. And here's the anterior view. There's the front of the arm. Biceps muscle right there. And there's the deltoid sneaking around right there. Okay, if we look at this lady here, she is really strong, she is really muscular, and we can really see her deltoid, awesome deltoid she has right there. Okay, excellent. Now we're going to switch gears and do another muscle. We've done the deltoid, we've done the trap as well. We're now going to do this one here, which is the pectoralis major, the bigger muscle of the chest. It is going to do two motions. It is going to flex and adduct the shoulder. It's going to flex and adduct the shoulder. So if you think about it, the flexion movement, classic flexion movement, there you are. There's your arm right there. So going from that position, your head got bigger, your feet got bigger too, what the heck, to that position right there. That is flexion of the arm. Your pec major does that. If you put your hand on your heart, kind of like in a Pledge of Allegiance position, and then you raise your arm up. Okay, raise your arm up like I did in my purple drawing here. You can probably feel your pectoralis major right near where it inserts on your humerus. You can probably feel it pop right up. If you think about, let's look at this guy here. Let's look at this gentleman. He has very nice pectoralis majors, pretty impressive as well. You can also see his trapezius, external oblique, rectus abdominis, all good stuff. If you think about exercising or at the gym, what do you typically do to work out your pec major? So That is a kind of a crappy looking bench, but there's you. You're on this bench. There you are. Your arm is bent like so. Let's put a barbell in your hand. There's the barbell in your hand right there. So what I'm doing here is a classic bench press. And if you go from that position, let's redraw the bench. That's an ugly bench. That's a really ugly. Let's erase that bench. Sorry for the ugly bench right there. Let's make a bench again. Stick the guy on it. So I show you the bottom position of the bench press right there. Top position. There we go. The arm is up. So the arm is now up. This is a classic exercise right here. The bench press, pushing that arm forward, that is going to work your pectoralis major. Similarly, if you are doing a push-up, here's the top position of a push-up right here. All right, yeah, it's your hand. Kind of looks like you're in a plank there. There's the bottom position right there. So doing a classic push-up, going from the bottom position to the top, is going to work your pec major. Okay, excellent. So it's going to adduct as well. I almost forgot to do that. Remember, adduction is going from having the arms out. So going from this position here to the arms in position with some crazy small legs. Okay, excellent. Let's keep going. We got the pec major right here with the number 1 on it. Removed on the right hand side to show you the pec minor. All right. Switching to the back. Hey, pec major was in the front, so it calls flexion. In the back, we have this big muscle right here called the latissimus dorsi. Latissimus because it's wide. Dorsi because it's dorsal. It's back. It's in the back. It is going to extend and adduct the humerus. So it's going to extend the humerus. So here you are. Your arm is in a flexed position like that. If you bring your arm back this way, that is going to extend the humerus. And we just did adduction, of course. Adduction is going from the arm out position and going back to the arms at your sides. So your latissimus dorsi is going to do both these motions. Let's point something out here. The pec major flexed, the latissimus dorsi extended. So in that case, they're antagonists. But they both act to adduct. So in that motion, they're synergists. So it really depends on the motion to determine what these muscles are doing. And if we go back to this nice lady here, she has really good latissimus dorsi right there. You can really see that. Very nicely developed. All right. If we look over here, we can see the lat sneaking up here. If you find that serratus anterior, boom, you're right at the latissimus dorsi. So check it out. Here's the serratus anterior right here. Pec major on this gentleman. Right there. Latissimus dorsi. All right. Sweet. We now have another set of muscles that are going to cause motion and also stabilize the shoulder joint. And this group of muscles is known as the rotator cuff. There are 4 muscles, all right? The subscapularis, which is in the front of the scapula, and we just see a little hint of it right here. This is the back of the scapula here, okay, back of the humerus. There's a spine of the scapula, which we know is in the back, okay? So below the spine, just below it, we have a muscle called the infraspinatus, below the spine. Below it, we have a little muscle called the teres minor. It's round if you were to slice it, and that's what teres means. Above the spine, we have a supraspinatus. So subscapularis is in the front, infraspinatus below the spine, teres minor below it, supraspinatus, above the spine. Sits. The rotator cuff sits on the shoulder. That's your mnemonic device there for these four. Let's talk about what they do and look at some of them on the models. Here is the subscapularis. This is the anterior view of the shoulder and the arm. And this thing in the front here is the subscapularis. Okay? It's to the inside of the shoulder joint, so it's going to bring your arm in. That's adduction. Whoops. It's also in the front. Because it's in the front, it's going to immediately rotate. Think about going from that anatomical position and then rotate your whole arm, okay? Medial rotation. All right. That's your subscapularis. What else do we got? In the back, we're going to see a whole bunch of stuff going on. We got the supraspinatus up here. Supraspinatus is above your humerus, right? So think about it lifting the humerus up. Well, if I'm lifting the humerus up, I'm doing that abduction. Okay, we're going to do some abduction there. If the supra is going to abduct, the supra is going to abduct, well, the infraspinatus is going to adduct. So there's the infraspinatus right there. It is going to adduct. Now, its neighbors, the teres minor. Because they're neighbors, they have the same job. So the teres minor is also going to adduct. Now, because both these guys are behind the humerus, they're going to laterally rotate it as well. You find the deltoid, you find these three guys right near him. All right? Find that spine, you find these three guys. Okay. Getting some good work done with the rotator cuff here. If you look at this model, we can see the delt, we can see the trap, and in between them, this whole collection here, the 1, 2, 3 here, like one A, B, C here, is the infraspinatus, and this sneaky guy right here is the teres minor. So we can see two of them on this model here. And with that, guys, we are done the shoulder. All we got to do is the elbow, and then we got to do the wrist, and then we're done, okay? The elbow, of course, is a hinge joint. So all it's going to do is flexion and extension. Flexion, when we make that angle smaller, think about bending your elbow. Extension, when we make that angle bigger, think about straightening your elbow. So let's go through some muscles that do this. We are looking at the lateral view of the arm. There's the deltoid up top. We see the deltoid coming down to its point. If I go into the front, remember, flexors are in the front, all right? And this frontmost muscle is that classic muscle, the biceps brachii. Brachii because it's brachial, it's in the arm. Biceps because it has two heads to it. Two heads, two origins. Coracoid of the scapula, and the rim of that glenoid fossa of the scapula as well. The insertion point is going to be down here. We don't see it. It is the radial tuberosity. So the biceps brachii is a powerful flexor. Think about bending your elbow to find that biceps brachii. Just deep to it, this muscle right here, this is the brachialis muscle. It is right next to and still in front of the it's right next to the biceps brachii. It's still in front of the humerus. So these two guys are synergists. Another synergist, which we can't see in its entirety, is the brachioradialis. So all these B's, the brachia, all these breaks, the biceps brachii, the brachialis, the brachioradialis, all these B breaks are going to be synergists and are going to flex your elbow. Okay, let's switch slides here. If we flip around to a front view, there's the biceps brachii, very nice right there. Hiding underneath it is the brachialis. Got that brachial artery running right on it. Nerve as well. If we look at this guy's ridiculously muscular here. And we can see the biceps brachii, classic muscle right there. And then just deep to it, right there, that is the brachialis. So any movement where you are actively bending your elbow against resistance, you are using your biceps brachii. So think about doing like a classic curl type exercise. So there you are. There's your arm. There's your dumbbell. And if you go from that position to a flexed elbow position where you have just bent that elbow, that is going to be a good exercise for your biceps brachii and your brachialis. Yeah. That was a great transition there, wasn't it? Okay. If we look at this model here, we can see the biceps brachii right there. There's the brachialis. Look at the deltoid, by the way. I love this. If we find the point of the deltoid is coming smack dab into the middle of the biceps brachii and the brachialis. If I go up a little bit, I can see that again here. Find that deltoid, find that tendon on the bottom of the deltoid there, and you are right between the biceps brachii and the brachialis. The deltoid is going to lead you to those two B's. Okay, the other member of the elbow flexor trio is the brachioradialis. The brachioradialis is this muscle right here. So we got it right here. Look at that brachioradialis. It basically goes from the arm all the way along the radial side of the forearm. Remember, you start in the delt, you find that point, takes you to these two guys, then you follow them downward, and this like topmost forearm muscle here is the brachioradialis. If we switch to an anterior view, if you think about where you put a stethoscope, so you are a medical professional now and you are putting the bell of the stethoscope more or less right there is the bell of the stethoscope attached to the earpieces. And so you're trying to take somebody's blood pressure. You want to hear their carot cough sounds. I probably shouldn't have used that color black right there, because let's make you green instead. There you go. You have a really big ear on that side. Must have been something. Your eyes are a little bit weird. There you are. So there you are. You're listening to their carot cough sounds to take their blood pressure, and you put that bell on that antecubital fossa. It's where you can feel the pulse of your brachial artery as well. You can find your biceps tendon is in there too. If you go just lateral, just outside of that, you will find a meaty muscle. That meaty muscle right there is the brachioradialis. If you shake hands with somebody and you try and crush their hand, like you try and, you're being that person who does that, you will feel that brachioradialis pop out. Okay, so the brachioradialis is a synergist to the brachialis and the biceps brachii. It is a flexor of the elbow. All right. Where are we? We're doing great here. Let's keep on going. If we look at this gentleman and this lady, we've seen them already. Biceps brachii right there. Brachialis right in the middle. And there's his brachioradialis. Kind of a ridiculous brachioradialis that he has. There it is right there as well. Really good. She's no slouch. She's not bad at all. Biceps brachii, brachialis, brachioradialis. So we can see the brachioradialis, brachialis, biceps brachii too. Good latissimus dorsi, good trapezius, deltoid. Yeah. Okay, let's switch to the back of the arm. So the triceps brachii is the muscle here. Three-headed triceps on the arm, triceps brachii. You actually have a triceps muscle in your lower leg. You have a biceps muscle in your thigh, by the way. So make sure you always give me the full thing. Triceps brachii, biceps brachii. And the triceps brachii, although it's nearby these guys, it is to the back of the humerus. It is going to originate on the lateral scapula and also the shaft of the humerus, and we can't see that here. Then it inserts on the olecranon of the elbow. Remember that elbow bump? Now, in this view, we just see the outer head here of the triceps brachii. There's three heads to it. Remember that. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a different view. Okay. This is a side view, all right? There's the delt, point of the deltoid, comes down, finds the two B's, biceps brachii, brachialis. We keep going back, we get the triceps brachii. Now I can see two of the three heads here. Okay. Flipping around to the back view. So here's the back of the deltoid, there's the infraspinatus, there's the teres minor, and right below the back of the deltoid, I can see these two guys right here. These are two of the heads here, the lateral head, the long head. Then sneaking right here is the littlest part. That's called the medial head. Okay? Now you can see this in muscular individuals. This lady, she's really strong too. You can see the lateral head. You can see the long head. It's kind of hard to see the medial head because it is fairly small. But we can see this here. Now the triceps brachii is an extender of the elbow. Triceps brachii is going to extend the elbow. So let's say you were standing like, let's see, let's draw you. I don't want to make you green. Let's draw you. What do you want to be? You want to be blue? All right, we'll be blue. So there you are. And you are standing here. Only I could draw better. So there you are, and your arm is up and your elbow is bent back like that. And you are holding a dumbbell like so. Okay, maybe it's a barbell. I don't know what you have in your home gym, whatever you got. And you go from that position to one like that with a straight elbow. That is a classic extension of the elbow. Your triceps brachii are doing that. Any motion where you are straightening your elbow is going to involve the triceps brachii. Any motion where you're bending the elbow involves the biceps brachii, brachialis, brachioradialis. So we got some antagonists there. That group of flexors is an antagonist to the triceps brachii. All right, excellent. We are done with the elbow, which means all we got to do now is the wrist. Check out that nice wrist right there. Love that wrist. 8 carpal bones, lots of joints, lots of little movements. We're going to do 4 movements in the wrist. Right here is flexion of the wrist. So bending your wrist in, like you are telling somebody to come here, like you're telling somebody to back up, flexing that wrist. Go in the opposite direction, moving it away from the palm side. You are going to extend your wrist. Now, as you can probably guess, the flexors are going to be in the front. So if you find your palm and you walk towards that same side of your forearm, that is where you're going to find your flexors. Flip it over, the back side of the forearm, generally the side of the forearm with more hair on it, is going to be where we find our extensors. Okay, let's do a couple more movements. Here we go. If you bend your wrist pinky side, that is a deduction. So a pinky side movement, pinky side wave, is a deduction. A thumb side wave is a abduction. All right, let's meet some muscles. A lot going on here, a lot of words here. Okay? Don't read them right now. Read them later. All right, so here is the elbow joint right here, okay? Here's the elbow joint. If we look at the elbow joint, I actually want to start over here. Starting on the thumb side. That muscle right there is the brachioradialis. Here's the biceps brachii. Here's the brachialis. Here's the brachioradialis. Okay? He's just for a landmark here. Now, next to it, this muscle running right down the radial side, the thumb side of the forearm, this is the flexor carpi radialis. Flexor carpi. Flexor, bender of the wrist on the radial side. So there's the flexor carpi radialis. It's going to originate up on the medial epicondyle. Going to insert on the second and third metacarpals. If there's a flexor carpi radialis, then over on the opposite side, right next to the ulna, do you see that white right there? That's the ulna. And right next to the ulna, we see the flexor carpi ulnaris. Flexor carpi ulnaris. So these guys work together to flex your wrist, to bend your wrist, to like bend your palm towards your elbow, towards your front of your elbow rather. So the two flexors are synergists for flexing. However, there's something else going on here. There he is, flexor carpi radialis is also going to move your forearm that way. That is a thumb side wave. Doing a thumb side wave is going to be abduction. Doing a pinky side wave, going that way, is going to be adduction. So the flexor carpi radialis is also going to bend the wrist towards the thumb side, which is abduction. The ulnaris is going to bend the wrist towards the ulna, the pinky side, and that's adduction. If we go back for a moment, this right here is a pinky side movement. Pinky side movement, that's the ulna side. So what muscle is going to do that is going to be the flexor carpi ulnaris. This is a thumb side motion. Remember, you should do these motions. The thumb side motion is going to be the flexor carpi radialis. All right. I know this is a long lab video. There's just a lot to do. All right. We flip the arm over. Got the biceps brachii up there. Brachialis, triceps brachii. There's the brachioradialis right there, number 4. And right next to the brachioradialis is this guy with the number 5 on it. This guy right here. Bum, bum, bum. This guy is the extensor carpi radialis longus. He is going to extend. He's going to straighten that wrist out. Extensor carpi. He's on the radial side. And he's the long one. There's also an extensor carpi radialis brevis, which is the shorter version of this muscle. So, extensor carpi, he extends the wrist. He's on the radial side, so he's also going to do a thumb side wave, which is going to be abduction. The name tells you a ton here. Okay, good stuff, good work. I love it. All right, let's orient ourselves here. This is the ulna. This is the ulna of the forearm. Okay, in the front of the ulna, we have the flexor carpi ulnaris. On the other side of the ulna, we have the extensor carpi ulnaris. Whoopsie. The extensor carpi ulnaris, extensor carpi. It's going to extend the wrist. Ulnaris tells me it's on the pinky side, which means it not only extends the wrist, but it does a pinky side bend, and that is adduction, adduction. So, if we think about, for example, the flexor carpi ulnaris and the extensor carpi ulnaris, in flexion and extension, these two guys are antagonists, but in adduction, they are synergists. All right. Folks, we only have 2 more muscles to do. I kid you not, 2 more muscles to do. I swear. So I got the front of the forearm here. There's my biceps brachii. There's my brachialis. Number 3 is the brachioradialis. Number 4 is the flexor carpi radialis. Number 5 over here is the flexor carpi ulnaris. We didn't even do this guy, did we? Didn't even do these guys under here. But there's this little guy right here. That little guy right here, kind of where your antecubital fossa is, where you put that bell for the stethoscope. It's on the other side of that bell. And that little muscle right there is the pronator teres. He's going to pronate. So think about going from a palms up position. So stick your palms out. Palms up like you are about to, hold something in your hands, and then put your palms down. That movement, palms up movement, going from palms up to palms down, going from palms up to palms down is pronation. The muscle that does that is this guy right here, the pronator teres. Switching around, going from palms down to palms up, that is called supination. And the muscle that does that is a deep muscle that we are not going to see, called the supinator. Wow. And give yourself a round of applause. Pat yourself on the back, because we are done. We just did the upper limb, guys, which is fantastic and incredible. So now you got to study all this stuff and then study it some more. Review. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.